Good day everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I will be talking about this latest release m-ATX case coming from Tecware known as Flatline. Before I go through in depth with the exterior, the interior, the measurements and the functions of this case itself, I'd like to thank Tecware to provide this case and to our local distro Tech Dynamic who have done the arrangement to ship this case to me. I will first start off with the exterior itself, the overall look. And I'll start off with the measurements. Measuring from here to here, in fact, is 210. From the height, from the feet to the top, measuring about 420 millimeters. From here to here will be 335 millimeters. From this end here, this is featuring the tempered glass itself. To remove this tempered glass, all you need to do, as you can see over here, there's an arrow. Place your index finger below and grip, and you can just pull the tempered glass out. And when you're doing this, right, you can remove the tempered glass by just moving this up. See, I've actually removed the tempered glass. At the front over here, this is a full mesh panel whereby it covers not only the front but the sides. As you can see, it continues on with the sides. And over here, back here, this is just a plain back panel, but this back panel has some functions whereby it has some holes over here, a whole strip of holes for cool air to go in or for hot air to come out. And to remove this, right, there are two thumb screws from the top and the bottom. So if you to remove this, now do take note not to lose the thumb screws, because these are not captive thumb screws on the back panel itself. So we can just slide and remove, and it will expose the back of the case itself. Moving from the back, now this you're able to house a 120 mm fan only and not above it for your exhaust hot air. And this is the I/O cutout whereby you place your motherboard I/O shield at the back. And as you can see, I can glide my fingers. There are no sharp corners over here. This, as mentioned, is a m-ATX case whereby you can only house a m-ATX or m-ITX. That's why there are only 4 slots. And for the first slot itself, right, let me just show you. In order to remove this slot here, you've got to unscrew this and pull it out. Unscrew the screws over here and you can take this out. Now this PCIe bracket, there's only one that is replaceable. The rest you will need to break it off. And if you want to replace it, right, you got to buy additional PCI brackets to cover the holes itself. And this is the PSU strap where you place your PSU. Now speaking of which, right, this case comes with 4 fans, which are all 120 mm fans. Non-PWM, meaning to say it only comes with a 3-pin connector, so the fan will run full. So for those of you who actually do not want to purchase additional fans, right, you can make use of the case fan itself. I've deliberately removed this off, and the fan screws are all in black, which is a nice touch. Now, where does this 4 fans come from? From the front, there are 3, and the rear, 1. And of course, it comes with the accessories pack. Now at the top over here, right, let me just move this up. At the top, you have this fan mesh filter whereby it will filter off the dust if you are doing an intake from the top. But most of us actually do the exhaust, so you can remove this and to place your fan for exhaust so that it will not obstruct the hot air from dissipating off from your case itself. At the top where it shows you all the IOs over here, now this is the power button. It's pretty big and it's very premium. It doesn't sync, which some of the case does. This does not. And you have the light indication or the LED indication for hard disk and for your power. This is the reset switch, a 2.0 socket, a headphone jack, a microphone jack, and 2 USB 3 socket. Flipping to the bottom itself, Now at the bottom there is this mesh filter to filter off the dust. In fact, it's the intake of your PSU and exhaust to the back itself, and this is removable. And to place it back, you can just slot it in like this, and done. Removing the front bezel itself, I find that this front bezel is fastened to the case pretty tight, though there is a catch over here to remove off. So I would advise to leave this case flat, having a mat or a protection kind of cloth to protect the case. Then you push at the corner over here. See, this is out. Do the same to the other corner. Switch it over. When it's out, right, do the same to the top. Sometimes it does not pull out. See, it's very tight. Done. And you can just leave it from the bottom. I'm actually using a bit of force. See, this is very tight. So do take note on it. Try not to damage the front bezel. And once I remove this out, it exposed the front itself. With the front exposed, you can see that you can house either 3 120mm fans, 1, 2, 3, or 140mm fans. Now there are slots over here. This is actually for the 120mm, and these are for the 140mm. Same goes to the other side. If you intend to house a liquid AIO itself, where you have radiators, make sure you keep it at 240, because if you were to place a 360 or a 280, right, it will not fit. Diving into the interior itself, as you can see, it's very spacious. There won't be any obstacle if you were to place any PC components, be it your graphic card, your motherboard, your SSDs, and such. And I will just swivel down to show you the bottom section over here, and I'll just zoom in. Now, some of the case manufacturer, they will put their branding on the PSU strap itself, and unlike how Tecware did it, a very nice thought, they have placed a very small logo over here that says Tecware, and this is not in bright colors, it's rather down. So when you place all your components in your PC itself and to close the tempered glass, right, this is hardly seen. At the interior of the bottom PSU strap, there are holes over here. This is for you to place 220mm fans, whereby you draw cool air from the bottom to the case itself or towards your graphic card. And these are the mounting threads, or should I say the screw threads for your fan. And the screws itself, right, I'll mention on the accessory section later. Now, as you can see here, there are 2 holes over here. These are meant for you to pull your audio cable to plug to your motherboard, the USB 2 header to your motherboard, and to route your PCIe cables to connect to your graphic card. Back to the center portion of the interior itself, as I mentioned, is pretty spacious. One thing worth mentioning about this case itself, I've actually worked with lots of cases and I often get cut. See, over here and over here. Why do I actually get cut is because of the edges of the case itself that is very sharp. However, this case itself, Tecware did a very nice touch, as in like they round off all the edges. In fact, most of the edges I can just touch without getting cut. So they have put into details on all the cutouts. See, I can just glide along without getting cut. Now, on the center portion itself, where you see all the gold color standoffs, these are meant for you to house your motherboard onto it and to screw on it. Based on the fact that you can house ITX, all the standoffs here are meant for ITX, and there are additional standoffs provided in the accessory pack where you can mount the full set of the m-ATX. These are the cutouts, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you might say that, how come so many cutouts? As in, like, there are 2 over here and 1 over here. Let me explain. If you to mount a ITX case itself, right? Sorry, if you to mount a ITX motherboard itself, these 2 cutout, you can make use of them, because is only until here, the motherboard itself. But if you to mount a m-ATX motherboard, it will cover up. So these two cutouts will be blocked. Alternatively, you will have to use this big cutout to route your 24-pin cables, the power cables, to your motherboard, and your 3.2 cables to your motherboard. On the extreme right itself, where it says SSD, you are able to house two 2.5-inch SSD on this platform itself, and they are held by screws, which are provided in the accessory pack. As for mounting a GPU itself, or the graphic card, you have a length of 320. So anything above that, right, kindly do not use them, especially the ROG Street 3080s or 3090s. So best is to keep it as 320mm. And when you're mounting the radiator itself, right, the AIO itself, make sure you place the radiator over here and the fan at the exterior over here. Now, reason being, right, if you were to place your radiator and fans internal of the case itself, right, you might not be able to place a 320mm length GPU itself. So make sure you place the radiator at the inside and place the fan at the exterior, which is like this. You might be wondering, can I close the front bezel if I will mount it this way? Yes, you can. In fact, it's flush. See? Your fan will just go into the bezel itself. You can just close, no problem. Looking at the rear, as I mentioned, this only enables you to house a 120mm fans. That's all. Looking at the top of the middle section here, there are two cutouts. One is for your EPS cable to route through this hole and to plug to your motherboard. The other cutout, you can route your fan cables to the back. If you have a fan hub, you can route through here. If you want to mount radiator at the top, please take care on the thickness of the radiator itself. Make sure that the thickness of the radiator is 27mm thick, because when you add up 27 with the fan, which is 25, total is 52. You will have more than enough clearance on your RAM's heatsink, on your RAM itself and the VRM heatsink itself. But if you were to place a 37mm thick radiator with the fans, which is 25, total up is 62. That will not be possible. Reason being, right, the thickness of it might block the VRM on your motherboard and to hit the RAM's profile itself. So take note on this. Now, as for the dimension on the AIO itself, or the radiators, either you use a 240 or a 280. Both will work, but not a 360. At the other side of the panel, this is the rear, where it shows you the rear of the motherboard if you have mounted one, and to route your 24-pin cables through these cutouts, or the cables which I'm going to mention over here, that you can route through here, and also the SATA cables if you intend to have hard disk housing at the front, so you can go through here. And below here, let me just swivel down. Below here, this is in fact the hard disk cage itself, where it's removable. Now, it can house up to 3.5-inch hard disks. You can place two. And as mentioned, this can be removable. Reason being, right, why is it removable? Because you might want to place a long PSU, probably about 1000 watts or so. But let me just show you the dimension. If with the cage, the hard disk cage, right, you can mount a PSU with a length of 180, no problem. So with this state, as I mentioned, if you do not want this hard disk cage here, especially when you're placing fans in front and you don't want it to block the airflow, right, you can remove it. Let me just turn this over. Now, at the bottom, there are two screws over here. I've taken off the two screws. So once you have actually taken off the two screws, you will be able to take out this hard disk cage. See, it's removable. For the front I/O cables which is supposed to plug to your motherboard from the case itself. Now I'll go through. So the power switch in fact is for this, and the reset switch is for this, and the LED connectors, right, is the indicators of the activities over here. It will just light up. Then followed by this is the USB 2.0, which is for this socket over here. Then you have the USB 3.0, which is for this too. This cable I'm talking about, the blue one, which is for this. And as for the audio, this is for the audio, which set for the headset and your microphone. Back to the rear of the casing itself, whereby you place, let's say you did all the cable management and such. So will the back panel be able to close? Now it depends on how thick your cables are. If you do not go beyond 20mm, it should be alright. Then you'll be able to tuck your cables nicely and to close the back panel. These are taken off from the accessory package itself. It contains of 5 zip ties for you to do cable management. Thumb screws for your PCIe bracket, whereby you mount your GPU, your sound card, your capture card. So make use of this thumb screw to hold them on the PCI brackets itself. And these are the standoff screws for your motherboard, and it can be applied on your SSD when you mount the SSD on the casing itself. Next will be this long screws for your fan, which I'm going to illustrate to you later. There are a total of 10 of them. For this, these are special screws for your 3.5-inch hard disk to the cage itself, because it has a gliding function, so it gives you 4. Next will be these screws here. I believe these are meant for the old IDE screws, the old IDE hard disk screws and such. So there are a total of 10 of them, so you can just put it one side. If you need, you just use it. Mother-off standoffs, they will give you 3 additional. As I mentioned, on the original default settings, right, it's only meant for ITX, so you need to use these 3 screws to screw on the motherboard itself, on the casing itself. Then you'll be able to mount fully your m-ATX motherboard. Now these are not coming from the accessory package. In fact, I removed off all the fans, all the 4 fans. These are all the black screws. Now I've talked about these screws over here, which are the long screws. What are they for? At the bottom of the case itself, right, where the PSU strap is, some cases you're able to mount fans over here, but I find that those cases are pretty silly, because when you want to mount the fan on the PSU strap, right, you have to go underneath, meaning to say you have to go under it to screw the fans onto it. But for Tecware, they have actually done a brilliant job. Let me just zoom in. If you want to fasten fans on this strap itself, right, you're provided with long screws, which are this. So you can just align them and screw them onto the strap itself. This is very handy. Just a little history on how I get to know about this case Flatline from Tecware itself. A month ago, a friend approached me to build up a PC for him, and I've actually gathered all the parts. Just last item, the case. So I thought that I can get the case that I wanted, which is the Montec Air 100 Lite. Somehow it's out of stock throughout, and I couldn't get it. I've been waiting for weeks, so it never happened. Having to say so, right, I did a search on Google, and this page, what you see over here, pops up. And later when I found out, as I reading through all the details, I like this case a lot. In fact, at first glance, it's so elegant. It's like, it's neat, it's not over designed, and it looks so sleek. Looking at the functions, right, is what I needed. So having to say this, right, I approached Tecware. Oh, by the way, this back then was not in Tecware's website. So I approached Tecware, and they were telling me that this case is not released out yet. That was like four weeks ago. So I was asking them if they could send me a sample that I can do an open view. And this is why you guys been watching the open view of this Flatline. In fact, I got this case yesterday. So you guys can tell how excited I am to actually do this overview. And I was curious about the price of this case itself, since it's official release about 2 weeks ago. When I did a search back then, and even right now, look at the prices on Shopee itself. It's so expensive, $80 Sing dollars, which is about 70, I think it's $78 in USD. So yeah, pretty expensive. And curious again, I'm saying that how much does it really cost in Singapore? Since Tech Dynamic has the stock and they sent it to me. To my surprise, when I did a search in Carousel, this gentleman here, okay, let me just back one page. So I was actually doing a search. This gentleman here was the only shop that is selling this case, and it cost $55. Coming from Cypher, I've in fact purchased 1 or 2 items from him. He is pretty quick, pretty fast. So if you guys wanted to get this case, probably you can actually get from him. I will leave his URL on his Carousel page in my description so that you can purchase from him. Alright, let's get to the conclusion on what I feel about this Flatline case from Tecware. To conclude the experience on this overview of this case itself, I had a very pleasant overview in a way that how Tecware designed this case, right, is very well thought of. Especially the edges is not sharp. I could just glide my fingers through. And another point is in fact the fence itself, whereby they can be mounted right in front and you don't have to, you know, take the screws and go underneath and to screw the fence in place. And it's pretty spacious, all very well thought of. I will be building this case with all these components that you see over here on another video, and that will be a time lapse, and I will tell you again what my experience are when building all the PC component in this case itself. Before I end this video, I'd like to thank Tecware and to our local distro Tech Dynamic, who have sent this case for my overview. Now, for those of you who are actually new in my channel, and if you like my content, do remember to subscribe and to click on the notification bell button. Till then, till the next video, take care, goodbye, see ya.